Mike Owens here, and today I'm joined by Neil Magny, who returns to action UFC 283, back in action against Gilbert Burns in Rio de Janeiro. Neil, always a pleasure to get your time. How are things with you today?
Things are going great. Just finished up a good training session just now. Body's feeling well, tummy's feeling good. So all well on my end. How are you doing?
I'm very well. It's always good to talk to you, but I checked the dates earlier. It's less than 90 days from the Rodriguez fight to the Gilbert Burns fight. How have you structured this camp? Did you take any time off after D-Rod, or did you just get straight back to it?
So yeah, I mean the biggest thing with the training camp, like for me, like D-Rod wasn't the end goal. Like I'm still aiming high. I'm still chasing that championship, still chasing that huge opportunity. So I knew after the D-Rod fight that it was a great opportunity. I set a record. I got a win. I got a bonus. All those things were very great, and I'm very fortunate for all those things. But I knew it wasn't the end goal. So after the D-Rod fight, it was more so just taking time to kind of rest for a couple days, recover for a couple days, enjoy some time with the family, and that kind of thing, and then get immediately right back to work. Like I said, it was a great opportunity to fight Gilbert Burns, and here I am getting this fight. So I'm pretty sure that I prepare myself well for it as far as like taking rest to really let my body heal up mentally and physically. And I feel like I'm doing.
A little bit of a technical difficulty there, but Neil, you obviously mentioned Gilbert Burns in the cage after the last win. In your own heart of hearts, ranked number 13 and calling out the number 5 guy, did you think this fight was likely to be made, or was it just wishful thinking at that point?
Honestly, like I thought that in my mind there was no other available matchups for him at the time, and I think setting the stage with like this fight going back to Brazil, and everything like that, like I think it would be a great opportunity for him to take that fight. But I can understand with the landscape of MMA why there might be some hesitancy on his part to immediately accept the fight. I mean, he's in a great position with the number 5 slot that he.
Once again, a little bit of a technical difficulty there, but Neil, you were talking about your kind of surprise at Gilbert Burns taking the fight back in November.
Yeah, so when I made the call out, I was just kind of looking at the landscape of the welterweight division and being realistic about available opponents and that kind of thing. The reality of it was there wasn't many top 5 opponents available for him to fight again, or in general, coming off a loss. And then the other part about that was the other guys that were ranked from 6 on back, mostly he's either fought or trains with. So it was very limited that he would be able to fight one of those guys too. So any other possible matchup that I can see him taking besides myself that would have made sense would have been the Masvidal fight, which for me, that's where the gamble was. I was like, all right, cool. He's going to fight Masvidal, which makes absolute sense. Or he's going to fight me because you want to wait 6, 7, 8, 9 months for a matchup. So I just kind of shot my shot and hope for the best. And I was very fortunate to get the opportunity to go out there and compete against him now.
100%. You mentioned a little bit earlier about the fight obviously taking place in Rio. I checked your record, your pro record, your 1 win and 2 losses in the city of Rio de Janeiro. You've got the loss to Sergio Moraes and Damian Maia, if memory serves. Can you talk to me about your previous experiences fighting in Brazil and what that kind of atmosphere is like as the away fighter?
Yeah, so far going to Brazil, I've lost one, won one, lost one. So if I'm following that pattern, I'm due for a win here in Brazil. So
Yes.
I'm ready to go out there and get it done. But overall, though, like in all honesty, like I feel like for me, when going down to Brazil to fight those opponents, it was kind of how do I put it? It was me kind of dealing with some uncertainty and like uneasy territory. Like the first time I went down to Brazil, I was literally fresh off the Ultimate Fighter, 1 win in the UFC so far, and it was like, hey, you're gonna pack up and you're gonna go down to Brazil now, and you're gonna challenge this guy who's a jiu-jitsu black belt in his home turf. And for me, that was a very new experience. My second fight in UFC to go international and compete against a guy who had some pretty high accolades. It was definitely a shock for me. The second time I went down to Brazil, I was definitely more suited for it. I was like, okay, cool. I've been down there, done it before. There's no surprises. I don't have to worry about any of the crowds chanting or throwing stuff like that kind of thing. I've seen it before. It's not going to shock me, throw me off, or put me in any kind of like crazy frenzy or anything like that. So I kind of knew what to expect the second time going down there. The third time was yet again another learning lesson from me. I mean, at the time I was on a 7-fight win streak, getting ready to fight Damian Maia, and in my mind, you couldn't tell me anything. I was like, oh yeah, dude, I'm gonna go down there, I'm gonna beat Damian Maia, be 8-fight win streak, I'm fighting for UFC title. Like this is it. I'm there. I'm ready to go. Um, and to be honest, I got complacent. I went out there expecting this fight to go smooth, expecting that fight to go easy. And it wasn't the case at all. Like David Maia went out there and literally schooled me. And it was a huge lesson learned going down there in Brazil. And I feel like all those experiences leading up to this one kind of prepared me for this moment. I know what to expect going out there with the home crowd against you. I know what to expect going out there with a tough competitor to kind of stand in your way, so to speak. I know what to expect going down there fighting a guy who's a top ranked guy with a huge opportunity after beating him. I know what to expect in all those scenarios. And for me, it's not shocking anymore. It's not like this big uncertain thing anymore. It's like, okay, cool. I've been there. I've done that. Know what to expect. I'm good out there and get it done now.
I completely agree, but with all of that being said, this is the first UFC fight night in Brazil in, I believe, over 3 years. And obviously we saw with the return to the likes of London and San Diego, the electric crowds that we've seen in 2022. Do you think UFC Rio will be a different experience to the other three that you've had?
Oh man, I feel like it's gonna be a great experience out there, especially with the fans being welcome back after 3 years, a 3-year hiatus and that kind of thing. The car's packed with Brazilian fighters. So I can guarantee the crowds will be super electric, and that's gonna be an extra motivator. I mean, this is one of my first fights with the full crowd. I mean, I fought in Columbus with an open crowd or whatever since the pandemic, but this is one of the first events I get to fight overseas full crowd since the pandemic. And Brazil usually has a pretty big turnout for their events, so. At this point, I'm definitely excited and happy for it. I'm ready to go out there and just like not put on a show just for myself and prove to the fans where I'm at, but put on an exciting fight that the fans will remember until the next time UFC goes down there again.
100%. Quite different 2022s between yourself and Burns. You obviously keep him very active with 3 fights. Burns obviously only having the one against Chimaev, but what a fight it was. With that being said, do you think there's anything that you saw in the Chimaev fight with Gilbert Burns that you think you can apply to your own game going into this fight?
The biggest thing that I see in the Shimai fight is just his heart, his willingness to go out there and scrap. I mean, you know what I mean? And I think that's the biggest motivating factor for me going into this fight. I know for a fact Gilbert Burns is not a pushover. I know of a fact when push comes to shove, he's going to be a guy that stands his ground and finds a way to get it done. So for me, watching that last fight, though it was a loss, it's not like I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna exploit this part from Gilbert Burns. No, it's motivating. I know for a fact I'm in for a dogfight. I'm in for a fight of my life, so to speak, going down to Brazil. And I welcome everything that comes with that. So for me, prepping to go down there to fight Gilbert Burns, I'm ready to take on all the hostility that comes with that, all the uncertainty, all the fear, all the whatever emotion you can possibly think of that would go with fighting a experienced, tough guy in his home country. I'm ready for it all. And seeing his heart in the Chimaev fight just kind of adds fuel to my fire, so to speak, going down to Brazil.
Well, one thing I want to mention as well about Gilbert is his last 2 losses, he's been dropped by a jab. Now, you have once again, another kind of technical difficulty. We are struggling a little bit today, but nevertheless, Neil, in Gilbert's last 2 losses, he's been dropped with the jab. Now, you're known for having such a fantastic jab. How important do you think the lead hand is going to be for you to have success in this fight?
So for me, it's kind of going out there and expecting hoping for the best and expecting the worst, so to speak. With that being said, him getting dropped the last 2 fights with the jab and knowing that he's fighting a taller fighter who's trying to use the jab very often, I would imagine that they're doing a lot of homework and a lot of drills to shut the jab down. So for me to go out there and rely on just that one specific weapon, I kind of feel like it'll be almost like a setup for failure on my end. So for me, it's more so going out there with a variety of attacks that I can kind of give and think about, where it's just not one particular thing for him to worry about. Where it's like, man, I thought it was just to come out and have to deal with the jab. This guy's kicking and punching and takedowns and all this other stuff that I didn't necessarily anticipate coming from me. So going into the fight, I think that's where for me the key to success is going to be just kind of mixing it up, staying active, and get him all these different types of looks where it's not just one thing you can expect. Where it's like, all right, whenever Neil's jabs, I'm going to do this. This kind of just constantly being his face and keeping the pressure on him. Where it's just like, man, I don't know when to strike, I don't know when to shoot, I don't know when to do anything. Neil's just kind of all over the place, keeping a good pressure on me. And I literally broke under pressure. Like that's my goal going out there fighting Gilbert Burns.
100%. Obviously, we talked a little bit earlier, and every time we've spoke, you've talked about the title still being the ultimate goal in your career. And obviously, as we mentioned, when you came off the T-Rod win, excuse me, you were ranked number 13. Gilbert was number 5. With that being said, does this feel like a big opportunity to get back into the title picture and really take one big step towards that ultimate goal of the world title?
100%. I mean, there's so much at stake here with this Gilbert Burns fight, and like as much as I try to minimize it in my mind and stay focused on the task at hand, I do understand all that comes with fighting a top 5 guy going into this fight, and like a lot of people will take that pressure and like kind of fold under it. It's too much to think about, too much to worry about. I understand the pressure and all that comes with it, and I'm ready to perform under that kind of pressure. In the past, where like when I mentioned fighting David Maia on a 7-fight win streak, getting ready to fight a guy who's ranked top 5, I kind of came up short in that opportunity. But I feel like I'm much more prepared now, both physically and mentally, to go out there and take advantage of this opportunity. And I'm excited to go out there and do just that against Gilbert Burns.
One thing I also wanted to mention as well is the guy who defeated you in 2022, Shavkat Rakhmonov, with a win on the 23rd, you will likely leapfrog him in the rankings, and in many ways kind of almost right that wrong in terms of the positional placing in the welterweight division. Does it feel like part of this fight is also righting the wrong of the loss to Shavkat?
I mean, in the grand scheme of things, like it does feel good to kind of leapfrog him, getting the job done against Gilbert Burns. But my own personal ego, I kind of right that wrong personally. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of want to, there hasn't been a fight in my career yet where it's like, oh, I want that rematch. Like, every fight that I've had or lost, my opponent has gone out and showed something different. I mean, whether it's Chiesa, Di Maia, or whomever else in the past, like all those losses that I've sustained throughout my career, my opponent's follow-up fights have showed like, all right, cool, was that a me thing, was that a them thing? And I think our careers have showed like, all right, that was more of a me dropping the ball situation as opposed to like wow, this guy just completely schooled me and I have so much to learn from. It's all been a great growth experience from it. I mean, at this point, I every opponent minus Shavkat that I've lost to, I've either surpassed as far as like number of wins I've had since our fight compared to them and that kind of thing, or in the rankings in general. So it doesn't bother me at all. I kind of take those lessons and strive on. But personally, my own ego, like I would love to personally get that Shavkat fight back for sure.
I'm sure you would. I'm sure you would. Just on a slightly different topic as well, while I've got you here, we've got to talk about the recent news that broke yesterday of the very infamous man Jake Paul obviously signing with the Professional Fighters League. Just give me an overview. What do you make of the whole news cycle of Jake Paul signing with the Professional Fighters League, and what do you think about that business decision?
I think it's good. I mean, whenever we can get some positive eyes on the sport of mixed martial arts, I always think it's a great thing. If you can bring in even a few 100,000 fans from boxing over to MMA, some guys from some fans from YouTube over to MMA, some guys from Disney over to MMA, whatever the fan base you can bring from wherever base he's coming from to bring over MMA. I think in the grand scheme of things, it's always a great thing. So for me personally, seeing the Jake Paul transition to mixed martial arts, I think it's a good thing. I mean, especially going over to PFL, I don't think any of the guys that are signed PFL or necessary pushovers. I don't think he's going to have as easy of a time with the opponents that he is going to face in PFL as he has in some of his boxing matches, as some might propose. I mean, even though some of the guys he's fought in boxing have been great mixed martial arts fighters, they weren't great boxers or whatever. And they're two very different sports. So for them to have the courage and step over to the actual sport of mixed martial arts to compete against our rule sets, against our guys, or whatever, I'm all for it. I'm excited for it to see how he does.
100%. Well, we'll turn the conversation back to you for one last question. And obviously the prime focus is the 23rd, getting the W in Rio. But if we think about almost the 24th of January and post-W, because that's the prime focus, what are the essential goals for 2023? What do you want to accomplish post-Gilbert Burns win in this calendar year?
Post-Gilbert Burns is keeping that momentum working. It's keeping that, keep this win streak building, keep the performances building, and keep striving towards that title shot. I know in my career, you being the UFC champion, and that remains one of the highest priorities in my career right now. So for me, getting a job against Gilbert Burns is number one, and then after that, just keep the ball rolling, keep the opponents coming, keep the opportunities coming, and keep building off of that.
I love it. Well, I can't wait to see the fight on the 23rd. And as always, thank you for your time. It's always a place to catch up. And best of luck down in Rio.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Reach out to you as well.
Before we finish, Neil, how can people find you on social media and any sponsors you'd like to plug? Floor is yours for the last word.
As always, you guys can always follow me on all social media platforms at Magny_170. But if you guys get a chance, check out mission111.org. It's an organization I work with that does mission work in both Haiti and the Philippines. It's mission111.org. Give those guys just check those guys out if you guys have an opportunity to. They do some great work around the world.